nice article in the Managing Madrid blog. Wonderful lads that do a great job there. And worth reading about that man there. Karim Benzema needs the rest, and the numbers reveal why.
Times ended up almost looking like a 6-3-1. Some very good writing about that on the Managing Madrid website. First rate podcast as well. Of course, Fede Valverde was a huge part of the equation.
What's up, everyone, and welcome to another special episode of the Managing Madrid Podcast. You know what? The good thing about playing Benfica a couple times a year is that we get to collaborate with one of our favorite podcasters, creators in the world. And honestly, I would have asked them 3 times to do a podcast this year, but even with 2, I was pushing it. I felt guilty. I was like, man, I don't want to take up too much of this guy's time, but because he's a great guy, he's a gentleman, Adrian has agreed to help us preview tomorrow's game one more time. Adrian Sousa of Rabona TV. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. And never feel shy to ask me to come on, because that just gives me more ammunition to ask you to come onto my channel. So feel free.
I like it. It's a mutual understanding. I'm always game to come on your channel. Listen, a lot has happened because the last time we spoke, at least publicly on a podcast, was before the group stage Benfica game, where I had the displeasure of attending that game and Real Madrid got waxed. The first leg was much different. But before we talk about some of the football, I actually wanted to start with some of the more obvious talking points, in that the first leg was marred by some very serious incidents, racism in the stands, whether it was homophobia or racism from Prestiani, we're not entirely sure. We have different stories, but whatever it was bad. And I think, Adrian, you do see a lot of just horrendous takes when something like that happens around the internet. A lot of people expose themselves, whether it's fans online or even disappointing comments from pundits or managers. But I will say you do see a lot of intelligent takes and great takes. And I have to say, you were 100% on the right side of history with that. And you had a very viral clip that I saw it everywhere. I opened the app. I saw it on TikTok. I saw it on Instagram. When I opened it, you had a very, very good monologue about how you were disappointed in Benfica. And I think that was an important thing to hear for a lot of people, including me, because you are a huge Benfica fan. So, there's no bias in your analysis. You said it exactly how you felt. And I know a lot of Benfica fans felt that way as well. And I told you this off air that, the only game I've been to in Lisbon was the group stage game. And I have nothing but incredible experiences from Portuguese people, from the fans inside the stadium where I was at, very, very respectful, good people. But there are a small group of people who also can make things very unpleasant. So you addressed that. So I wanted to also just give you a chance and a platform here, with a very Real Madrid specific audience, to also discuss how you felt with everything that happened, and also the way Benfica handled that situation.
I think the initial feeling, well, first of all, I'm sorry that you saw me on multi-platforms. It's too many times. But I think the initial feeling right when I saw the referee doing this was, please don't let this be what I think it is. Because that just kind of ruined not just the game. Like, I don't even remember what happened after that point. I don't know about you, but I have zero recollection. I remember Vinicius getting bottles thrown at him. I remember that, but I don't remember anything else that happened after the match, because I think a lot of people's brains went straight to this can't be true, even though it looks like it is. Let me see what's happening on Twitter, because usually Twitter, there's multiple videos and angles and everything that you can see. And sure enough, it certainly looked like it was exactly as we thought it was. And everything that followed, including Mourinho's comments, were incredibly disappointing. The club's reaction, in my opinion, was incredibly disappointing as well. Just going back to Mourinho, though, ever since that match, so we've had our league match on the weekend, And Mourinho did not speak to the press prior to that match. He spoke to the club's channel, Benfica TV, which is not out of the ordinary because there isn't an obligation for him in the Portuguese league to speak to the media and international media prior to a match. So he has done this quite a few times before. I think like 6 or 7 other times this season. So that's not out of the ordinary. After the match, when he was asked about the situation, about his comments, specifically if he thought that his comments were something he would like to apologize for, or that there was, baseless claims of criticism for what he said, I don't want to comment. And Benfica's press officer said that we won't be taking questions about that because there's an ongoing UEFA investigation. I personally thought this was a time for him to be able to sort of clarify his position. Don't go into the nitty gritty of it, but at least clarify your position of saying something like, perhaps I was speaking out of emotion. I've always been a club man, so I was thinking of the club first when I shouldn't have made that mistake. Something along those lines. I don't care. Say something. Now he's not speaking in front of the media again. He chose to have his assistant to speak instead in his place prior to this match. I don't know if that's gone through yet or not. And it's within his rights to do so. He doesn't have to speak to the media because he is suspended. But I do find that this whole silence is deafening coming from Benfica. I know that the president finally commented saying that he can guarantee Prestiani is not racist. I find that has been disappointing. I find that the immediate reaction with the social media, backing Prestiani when you should have just said something along the lines of, we like to, I don't know, racism has no place in our club. It never has. And we are going to comply with any investigation. Something as simple as that, which I think a lot of people have echoed. But I think the more disappointing part has been how a lot of people, Benfica supporters or otherwise, or rival Real Madrid supporters, are just, you guys are far more familiar with this than I am, are just going on it's Vinicius, he shouldn't be allowed to provoke people and blah, 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 and saying that Benfica shouldn't throw Prestiani under the bus and that they should back him. They have the right to back him because he's innocent until proven guilty. All these things, all this backwards thinking where they don't seem to see that it doesn't have to be Prestiani is a racist and we want him out of our club. And it doesn't have to be from Benfica, I'm saying. And it doesn't have to be Prestiani. We can guarantee that Prestiani is not racist. You can just in the middle. It's not one or the other. You can be in the middle, not as far as racism as a whole goes, but as far as this goes, as far as your sort of PR approach to it, show that you understand racism is wrong while also complying with the investigation. So that's all been very, very disappointing. The one thing I will give Benfica a little bit of a break on is, I don't know if you've seen the latest post that's gone viral of a young black fan who's posing with the shirts, the Benfica shirt and the players. A lot of people are running with that as this kid that we rolled out as sort of a puppet to show that we're not racist. And I understand why people would think that. I completely understand, given how Benfica's handled this situation so far. But this young man went viral in Portugal as a whole at the beginning of February because he helped save his mother's life with a 911 call that was, played on the news, and he was heralded as a hero, and rightfully so. He stayed completely calm in this situation and managed to save his mother's life. And it came out that he's a Benfica supporter. So on February 12th, he was invited to the Estadio de Luz. I think the match against Real Madrid happened on February 17th, if I'm not mistaken. Something like that. So on the 12th, he was invited to the Estadio de Luz. He was told that he would be a mascot at the next Benfica home match in the league, which was this past weekend.
Yeah, it was pre-planned. Yeah,
it was pre-planned. And I understand why people say that, how it looks is not great. The optics of it are not great with how everything has been sort of playing out and how Benfica's kind of tokenized Eusebio, a club legend, a little bit, saying that, nothing can be racist because he's a club legend. But it's just not the case. That's the one thing where I'm sort of, not defending Benfica, but just saying, like, guys, it's not what you think. There is added context here.
Right. I do think you mentioned Mourinho missing a press conference is not out of the norm. It actually, I've seen a lot of takes of like, oh, he's a coward. And will not at all defend Mourinho's comments at all. I was hugely disappointed in him. This is coming from not only me, but a lot of Real Madrid fans who had a very, very deep connection with Mourinho for his time at Real Madrid. He has a cult following, and I love the guy. That night, what he said was so disappointing to me. But I don't think him missing this press conference was a sign of cowardice. You mentioned it's not out of the norm. With Real Madrid, he sent Aitor Karanka, the assistant manager, for press conferences all the time, especially for games he was suspended in. In fact, when he was doing it at Real Madrid, already at that time, he had already done it like almost 50 times in his career. That was 16 years ago. So I can't imagine how many times he's done it since. It's actually not that out of the norm, as you said. And I think if he had attended today, it would have been, if he really truly didn't want to address it, because Benfica's press officer today in the press conference said it outright at the beginning of the press conference: there will be absolutely no Prestiani question. Just, we're not even going to entertain it. And the couple journalists that tried were basically shut down right away with a one-word answer. So I don't think that this was the case, that he was being cowardly in this case. But you mentioned the Eusebio thing, and I think there were a couple of things that really didn't sit well. One was the comment about, well, Vinny, you scored a great goal, but why are you celebrating like this? And why is there one common denominator wherever he goes? I think Arbeloa said it very simply today, that how Vinicius celebrated against Benfica that night was the way opponents celebrate against us all the time. It's like such a normal thing in football. And it always just bewilders me. Like, I just sit there dumbfounded, Adrian, anytime I see people criticizing him dancing. I'm like, literally everyone is allowed to dance. Why isn't he allowed to dance? Just because you don't like him? And I think the Eusebio comments, I was trying to think about like how to even verbalize why that bothered me. And then I just watched the entire company press conference, and I was like, oh, that's it. Just watch that, and then that's it. That, I think he summarizes it very well. I don't know if you had a chance to see Kompany's quotes, but I thought he spoke really, really well in his press conference to address the issue.
Yeah.
So Prestiani might play tomorrow. It's kind of unclear. They've appealed it. This is according to several reports that they're appealing. He made the trip to Madrid just as Mourinho did. Let's assume he doesn't play, because as we kind of said earlier in the podcast, that whether it was racist or homophobic, that the UEFA rules are actually very clear. It's the same punishment. So he'll likely still be punished, and he won't play tomorrow, I'm going to assume. If he doesn't play tomorrow, we'll kind of shift gears to the actual football. How much does that change Benfica's approach and everything that's going to, in terms of their game plan tomorrow? What do you expect?
So I would expect, because a lot of people maybe don't know this, which makes sense. You don't follow Benfica. But Prestiani at the beginning of the season and last season, he wasn't exactly a starter necessarily. He was sort of someone that came in largely because Luca Bacchio, the guy who we signed for quite a bit of money by our own standards from Sevilla, had a pretty major ankle injury for a lot of this season, because he was our right winger for a while once he sort of got integrated into the team. Prestiani sort of got that opportunity due to him missing. Now, I will say that Prestiani as a player is someone that Mourinho would like, because he's very hardworking, he's very combative, that kind of thing. So he is a player that Mourinho, would like. So who's to say that Prestiani wouldn't have fought his way into the side? But originally, we had someone like Luca Bacchio playing down the right, or sometimes even Erstnes was playing in there, who we've played in literally every position except for goalkeeper. So we've had like a wide range of people playing on the right. So my expectation is that Luca Bacchio would be someone that Benfica would look to as being the starter down that right-hand side. Just because, he's finally fit, and he's probably the most experienced. He's played in Spain. If that has anything to do with it, I don't know. But he's a more senior player, and he changes our approach because he's not as hardworking in defense, etc. He changes our approach in that he will use his raw power and dribbling to sort of run at the left back over and over and over again, and would be sort of that out ball for us to counter. That's what I imagine will happen. I don't know that Benfica's approach will be vastly different from their approach at the Estadio de Luz. I think that they'll look to this last weekend's result and sort of have hope that they can get a result as well, even though you were playing at El Sadar, I believe, this past weekend.
Yes.
But I believe that Benfica, with Schielderup out there, with Luca Bacchio out there, they're going to try to really run at the fullbacks of Real Madrid, really try to run in between the spaces. And basically the game plan will be hold off as long as you can and then try and get a goal in the second half against the run of play, what have you. And this time be a little bit more decisive in the box than last time.
Are you surprised at how different the first leg was than the group stage game?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Because nothing in Real Madrid's kind of, I mean, I guess there was little signs, you could speak to this better than I could, little signs here and there that Real Madrid are starting to sort of find footing under Arbeloa prior to that first leg match. But I did not think that Benfica would be handled so easily by Real Madrid, especially playing at home in that first leg. I thought that it was going to be a real cauldron at the Estadio de Luz, that all the players were going to be up for it to prove that that first result wasn't a fluke and that they can do it again. And you saw performances from players like, I thought that Carreras was so much better than he was in the first leg. Tchouaméni, I found that the midfield was that Benfica had decent outlets to pass through the midfield at the beginning because Tchouaméni looked a little bit isolated out there. So we had Rafa and Pavlidis sort of on either side of him. But that got fixed as the match went on. I really thought that we were going to do a lot better. But clearly, Arbeloa showed that he can make adjustments and that the players did learn from that first result. And maybe Benfica was guilty of thinking, the same as me, that it was going to be a similar sort of situation and it was going to be easy and didn't sort of respect their opponent enough.
I actually think, Adrian, and I can't prove this obviously, but it's just something that I was thinking about. It may have been beneficial for Real Madrid to play that group stage game against Benfica, to almost have like a trial run and be like, okay, we got Carreras' nerves out of the system on his first return. And we kind of got a glimpse of what not to do again. And I actually wonder, because initially when that game ended 4-2, I was like, oh man, we might actually play these guys in the next round. And now they have all this belief. This is bad. But then, I mean, this is with hindsight, obviously. It's like, oh, maybe it was a good thing that for Real Madrid fans to like see that. And I think the big one is Carreras. I think Carreras probably needed to get one game at Estadio de la Luz out of his system because he looked very nervous on his return. So he was improved. I think the other major thing was that in that group stage game, we had very high wing backs that were exploited over and over again in that high line. And we had Hausen, treading water and just a back line that was very shambolic. And, now that Trent is back too. Trent was very good in that first leg as well. So we have these like little things, and we kind of felt like, oh, we should have left that game with more than a goal to our name. Which leads me to the next question. How do you feel about this? Because I'm actually interested. I actually am excited to tell you how I feel about it because it will give you confidence. But how do you feel about it now as a Benfica fan? You may have escaped just not conceding more than one goal. You go into the Bernabeu, the away goals rule is obviously long gone. How do you feel about it tomorrow?
Like you were sort of saying, I feel very lucky that it's only one goal and that there was I think Mbappe had his boots on the wrong foot or something in that game when it came to his finishing. So we were very lucky in that regard. It puts us in a position where we can be competitive, that we can think, maybe we can force an extra time or something. It's not like the Bernabeu has been this, fortress necessarily, where it's impossible to get a result there for away sides. So there is some hope. However, I'm curious to see how the players will respond to the kind of boos and the hostile atmosphere that they'll be subjected to. Look, I mean, they play against Porto. They know a hostile atmosphere. Those matches are not something to sort of shy away from when it comes to being very hostile. Playing against Sporting, it's the same kind of deal, whistling the entire time. But one of the things I'm curious about is if there is a feeling of shame, for lack of a better word, within the players, because Prestiani, it said, did apologize to the entire team for what they assume is sort of this undue added pressure that he's put on the team due to his actions. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how much that will affect the players, because even in this last match this past weekend, the first half was good, but we're playing against a team that is bottom of the league, has 8 points at this point, horrible side. So of course we were going to win that match.
Right.
So I don't know. I feel like something's going to be a little bit off, and with the added atmosphere, it's going to be very difficult.
I think it could go either way. I mean, the last time that Real Madrid went into a game angry was the October Clásico, where Lamine Yamal before the game was talking about Real Madrid cheat and steal or rob. I don't remember the exact quote, but obviously that was a spectacle. And I was lucky enough to be there, and I have been to a lot of Real Madrid games. I don't think I've experienced that kind of like tension in a game where the fans and the players were collectively so united at hating a club and a player together. And I think it kind of rocked Barca a bit. And I was like, man, can somebody please talk shit against us before every game? Because we rarely play with this much intensity. So in that sense, like maybe you get that version of Real Madrid and the stadium as well tomorrow, which might be a good counterbalance, Adrian, because to tell you how I really feel, there's been way too many uncomfortable second legs at the Bernabeu after the team comes back home winning. Off the top of my head, there was two that really, really burn in my memory. One of them was we went down 3-0 to Juve in the second leg. Was it 2018, I guess? After having a sizable lead in Turin, we came back and we went down 3-0, and Ronaldo had to score a penalty at the death. And then we had Chelsea, where we came back with a 3-goal lead, and then that went into extra time at the Bernabeu. So it's a team that likes to defy odds when they're trailing, but it's also a team that unfortunately prides itself on just taking it easy when they come back with a lead. Ajax 2019 was another one where we lost 4-1 in that second leg. So it's on the table for this to be disastrous. Unfortunately, I just got to say it. It's on the table, man.
I mean, I hope so. I hope so. I think that it's going to be, this has got to be one of the most watched matches of the Champions League this season so far, this second leg, just the general interest in it due to everything that has happened. And the previous match that had, Trubin providing the magic, whatever. Yeah. It's going to be one of the most watched matches. It has to be.
Okay, we'll end with this question. If there's a path for Benfica to eliminate Real Madrid tomorrow night, what is it that they need to do? It can be tactical, it can be personnel, whatever you think it is.
I would say that the number one thing that they need, I'll say two things. First of all, the defense has to be so much better because they were absolutely porous against Real Madrid, and that's sort of been the risk all season long. I think I talked about it before the league stage match, where we have an old guy in Otamendi as well as a bunch of young guys who are more inexperienced and maybe not as good defending as they are going forward in the case of Dedic. So that's number one. The defense absolutely has to be better than it was in the first leg. Otherwise, we're going to be conceding a ton of goals. Mbappe won't give us another match, I don't think, where he's misfiring like that. And then the other one is that I think Sjelderup, who had a good first match against Real Madrid in the league phase, I think that he's one of the keys to the attack. And if he's able to give Pavlidis opportunities, because we didn't see many opportunities for Pavlidis, a lot of them came from sort of outside of the box, that kind of thing. He wasn't really getting opportunities in the box. I think that Sjelderup is absolutely the most important player in our attack for this match. And if he can give Trent Alexander-Arnold sort of some issues down that left side / his right, then I think that will be key, as he was in the first match.
Listen, it's gonna be tense for both sides. It's gonna be a nail biter, I think. Where there's gonna be a lot of suffering, especially for one of us at least. I did want to say thank you for coming on the show. You took some time out of your day to spend some time with us to help us preview tomorrow's game, and I appreciate that. I also want to tell our listeners that tomorrow's post-game show is only for members. So if you want access to the post-game show, it's better to join today so you're not scrambling for the link tomorrow. If you're on YouTube, I put the link in the chat right now, and it's also in the comments. And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple, you can just simply go to patreon.com/Managing Madrid and access the post-game show there. Also, Rabona TV, literally an hour ago, before we started recording, released a new video about Prestiani and Benfica and everything. So you should go check it out. I really probably don't need to plug it because you guys are already in there. But just in case you're not, Rabona TV on YouTube. He does terrific work. Thank you so much, Adrian, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. And I'll be hitting you up to join me on my channel eventually.
Love it. Anytime, I'm down. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.